Zidane again. Welcome back to Learning Japanese here on my channel. Today's lesson is going to be that of katakana, which is basically the way that Japanese spells different words that are specifically in other languages. So let's say that, just as an example, you want to say taco. You would use katakana to say that. So you would use ta and ko in order to actually spell that. It's also how many people will be using to spell their names. And I will be showing you guys how I spell my name because it's a good explanation of basically every single thing that you're going to need to know about katakana. So let's actually get started with, of course, the a, I, u, e, o. And yes, we are using the exact same sheet that we used last time. So let's begin. So first off, a is a very simple line and a line. Probably the easiest of these words, in my opinion, or syllables, in my opinion. But obviously there are some that are easier. Like, hey, that's still easier. And let me just zoom in really quick so that you guys can see it better. I made a little bit of a mistake here by not putting a little space here. The important thing to note is that there is a space between these lines. They do not connect for a. But next up is E, which is a line, and then another line. Make sure that you do this. This one does connect, and now we go into U, which is a line like that, and a line down. Fairly simple. And then E, line, line, line. One of the important, always make sure that this line is shorter than the bottom line, and you will be good. Next up is, of course, O, which is fairly simple. Just 3 lines, making sure that the last one is a little bit curved. And now we go into the actual fun stuff. Again, all of these, pretty much everything follows the exact same rules as it does in hiragana. Basically, if you want to make a K sound like a G sound, then you're going to make sure that you add the dendens. The S sounds into Z sounds. You do the dendens. T into D sounds, dendens. H into B sounds, the dendens. And if you want to do H into P sounds, then you will use the circle. And I will actually be covering a little bit more of this when we get to the H's and the R's, because those ones are a little bit special, and I do want to talk about them a little bit more. So first off, let's continue with the K's. K is very similar to its original version, but there's no line up here. So if you are going to put the dendens, of course, make sure that you do both of them and do not do 3, because then it would be the other version, and that would not be good. So again, that is K. That is ka. Next up is ki, which does not have the hook or the little loop that ki in hiragana has. So yeah. Which, if you guys watched my video about over on my other channel about the K in my language, yes, this was not intentional for them to look nearly identical. But that is how I learned that one so quickly. Next up is ku, which is just like that. And we will be seeing this again in my name. So, yep, look forward to that. But we're going to be seeing it as gu. Next up is ke, which is a line, and then another line. Fairly simple. And finally, ko is a box, like so. And I screwed that up a little bit. You do not want to you want to make sure that you do not actually have the line going as far as I did. But and even there, I'm still screwing it up a little bit. Just make sure that it's basically it's going to look like a box. I'm just over exaggerating the fact that this line does go a little bit further than it should, mostly so that you guys can see it properly on the camera. All right, next up is the S's, which of course we start off with sa, like so, which, yeah. Oh my gosh. Now, this is important. There are a few specific words that have, or specific syllables that have very similar writing, especially in katakana. And these are shi and su. One thing that I've really managed to do and think about when I'm doing these is kind of still think of them in their normal format. So for shi, make sure that you draw both lines kind of going down and to the right, but you want to make them a little bit more flat than pointed down. And then you continue the motion by going up with your stroke. The reason that I have to make sure that you know that it's up with your stroke is because su is the opposite. So we'll explain that again when we get to su. And when I say su, I'm saying su, not su, because su is this, which fairly simple. All right, next up is se, which is just a simple hook, and then like that. Another thing that you might be noticing is that with a lot of the ones in katakana, I'm trying to be a little bit more pointed with my lines if they are at an angle or something, while I try to be a little bit more rounded with the hiragana. This is because of the fact that katakana is a lot more right angles, while katakana is very right angled, while hiragana is more rounded. So just be aware of that. You don't need to worry too much about it, but it can be important. All right. And next up is, of course, so, which this is, again, a very similar one. This one, you want to make sure that it's going down a little bit, like so. And then you are going to go like, you're going to go down like so. This one is also important because is very similar to it, but it's angled a little bit more. The little line is angled a little bit more, and it's going up instead of going down. So yeah, very, very complicated information that I know can be very confusing at times. So yeah, please remember so. And now we're going into the tas. So first off, we have our ta, which is just like that. And make sure that the line does not go through it, because there is one that actually does go through it, and there's no line there, but it's yeah. Make sure that you're careful. That's going to be one of the biggest things that I'm going to be making a note of as we go through this stuff. Next up is chi, which is a slightly angled line here, then a straight line here, and a curved line like so. And I don't know if you guys can see that because my freaking camera is being stupid. So, slightly angled, straight, and curved again. All right, next up is, of course, tsu, which, like I said before, you want to make sure that these ones are a little bit more pointed down, because sometimes you're not necessarily going to be super aware of this, and then this curve goes down. These two are, so yeah, remember, shi, you're going up, and su, you're going down. Those are the most important aspects for these low lines. And the same thing, again, so you're going down, you're going to be going up, but we'll get to that later. And again, if you were to actually write su and she over them, then you would actually notice that for she, it's going in the same shape, and with su, it's also going in the same shape. So, yeah. All right. Next up is te, which goes like that, and boom. Next up is, of course, to, which, yeah, that's just like that. Two little straight lines. I do want to actually also make a little note of this. Apparently, this is actually a little bit more common than I was expecting. Obviously, yes, you're going to be using this instead of su whenever you're trying to specifically write, let's say your name, for example. If your name has a T with no vowel after it, then you're going to be using to instead of tsu, because otherwise it just sounds wrong. All right, next up is, of course, that of the ends. So first off, we have na, which is just like so. Next up is ni, which this one will probably be the easiest for you guys to remember because it is literally the same as tu. Because, yeah, and just make sure that the top line is slightly shorter than the longer line. And, yeah, so it is literally the same as tu in kanji, and which is also pronounced ni. So, there you go. Little extra kanji lesson in today's video. Next up is nu, which is just like so, and this is where we draw the line through. Ta-da! All right, but again, don't put another line here because that's not the correct thing. Next up is ne, which is just a simple stroke, stroke down, and stroke to the side. I did screw that up a little bit, but you get the idea. And finally, for the ends, we have no, which this is just a simple line like that. And luckily, it is the only one that has this, unlike the frickin' she and su and so and n. Only this one has this line, and it does go down. So make sure that you do have this go down, because sometimes that is noticeable, depending on what you're using. Next up is ha, which is just really simple. I've seen it done a few different ways, but I specifically do it like so. You might notice that in your chart, you might see that both are curved outwards, but the way that I learned it is to actually curve this one inwards a little bit. Next up is he, which is just like so. And fu, which we will be seeing again in a little bit. One stroke. And hey, which I've mentioned before, is very simple, just like that. This looks exactly the same as in both hiragana and katakana, so it's the easiest one to probably remember if you're learning both. And finally, we have ho, which is a line, and then two little lines going outwards. Kind of looks like the katakana for tree, or the kanji for tree, but it's obviously different. So since we're actually here, I do want to make a few little notes about hahihuheho. This is the reason I specifically said hahihuheho instead of hahifuheho is because of the fact that when using hiragana, specifically in this case, or katakana in this case, is because of the fact that many people will actually use this to represent fa, fi, fu, fe, fo, as well as ha, hi, hu, he, ho. However, this is not always the case. If you have a Final Fantasy, for example, the Final Fantasy manga, what you might notice is that fu has, or any of their things, they have fu, and then they have a smaller version of a, I, u, e, o. This is mostly used for things like branding and stuff. Usually, if you're using your name and you have an F sound, then I would still suggest using ha, hi, hu, he, ho as to represent the F. And if you have a V sound, then you're going to do ba, bi, bu, be, bo, because that is the closest to V, but there is actually ways to do it, and I'm not going to get into that because I don't know that whole situation yet, because I've only heard it a little bit and not in actual lessons. So still use ba, bi, bu, be, bo. Obviously, there's no special thing for papi, pupe, po, but yeah. So these ones, those are just important things to keep in mind with these sounds, because there really is no proper way to actually say it. All right, now we're back into the home stretch. Ma, mi, mu, me, mo. So first off is ma, just like so. And then mi, which is 3 lines. These first 2 should be about the same length, and the third one should be slightly longer, but everyone's going to know what you're meaning if you do this this way. And mu, like so. You may notice on the katakana chart that I've saved for you guys that mu is actually has a little jot out here. Don't worry about that. That's just for when you're typing it, it will show that. But when you're actually writing it, just make sure that's all one stroke. That part is just one stroke. All right, and me, downstroke, and cross that. Luckily, there's nothing else connected to that. And mo, which is line, longer line, down, and make sure that's straight. And there you go. Now, for the ya, yi, yu, ye, yo, or ya, yu, yo, I guess, because I'm an idiot. So ya is just line with a hook, and then the straight line down. And I'm just realizing that that didn't show up. So there it is. Very simple. You, doop, and doop. Ta-da! And finally, if this freaking thing won't move, is yo, which is kind of like a backwards E. Ta-da! Alright, and now we just have our R's, our W's, and our N. So, first off, ra, boop, boop, and boop. Very similar to oo, except for obviously it's a lot more straight. So yeah, there's that. And re looks exactly like its normal self, except that there's no hook at the end. And for some reason, like I said, when you're doing typing, then you will see that little loop on the normal one. But for this, it's just straight line and then curved line with no hook. And then there is ru, which is a curve down and then a curve and up. Re is kind of like she, but a little bit more angled. And then ro is a box, which you do like so. Ta-da! You'll also see that in katakana for mouth, and we'll talk about that later. Or not katakana, with kanji. That is also the kanji for mouth. So, yeah. And finally, we have wa. And just like so. Now, there is actually a kanji for o. But you will never, ever use this. I have been taught it, but multiple teachers have told me that this is never used in any case. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll see someone with a name that starts with a W and has an O there right afterwards. But it's just like that. You can forget this right now because it is never used. likely the only thing that you're actually going to be using this for is with a name that's just weird. So, yeah. And finally, we have which is just slightly down, and then boop, and you're done. There we go. There are your katakana and hiragana, all taught very simply, and hopefully you have enjoyed learning all of these. But now I'm going to show you how you could actually spell your name. So the first thing to note is that with hiragana, if you want to extend the sound of a vowel, you will then you would take your a, I, U, E, O for that vowel, and you would then put it right afterwards. But with katakana, what you actually do is you do this little line. When you are writing it in vertical format, then it will go down. If you're writing it in horizontal format, it will go to the side, which is kind of confusing because of the fact that that's also freaking 1. So yeah, so I'm going to show you guys how I write my name in katakana. So first off, we have Zefu Ramu, which is just like so. Ra and Mu. Which, yeah, like I said, it is literally just Zefu Ramu. The easiest of my two names. Now for my last name, though, we actually have to go to the other page because it's almost as long as my actual name. It's simpler, but it's also a bit more of a pain. So first off, we have Gu, which of course we have Doop and Boop and the two dendens. Then we have Ro, which is the box. Ha, Lu, and then Su and Ki. And usually I'll omit this last line, but because of the fact that it's a ski down a mountain, I choose to keep that line just in case. And yeah, that's primarily why I want to teach you guys how I write my name, because it's actually a pretty long name and it can be helpful to know how to do that. So yeah, basically take what I've learned in this lesson and learn how to write your own name, because it's actually really helpful, especially if you plan to go to Japan. And yeah, hopefully this lesson has been very helpful to all of you guys who are hoping to learn Japanese. But yeah, anyways guys, next video we will be doing some more stuff with kanji, and I will see you guys in the next video. Badon!